Hi, fourth grade. We are going over your pages for page 370 through 373 in your reading book today. And you have your 4 topics that we talk about usually on Tuesdays. And the ones that we're talking about today start with summarize. To summarize. So to summarize means to retell the main ideas and details in your own words. Not to repeat exactly what's sitting in a paragraph, but to tell it in your own words. In the example they give you, they say that Pocahontas was a famous Native American woman, that she was the daughter of Chief Powhatan, and she saved John Smith's life twice. She was the first Native American woman to marry an Englishman. And that kind of gives a summary of the real life Pocahontas section on page 368. Now, in Struggle to Survive, paragraph 1, we're going to summarize that. We're going to tell it in our own words. We use the key ideas. We're going to find those key ideas and details, and then we're going to put them in a little section together. So Struggle to Survive says, there is a proverb that says, ignorance is bliss. In the case of 104 men and boys who came ashore, this was true. They were faced with tremendous challenges. The water from James River was not safe to drink, and food was scarce. 2 weeks after the settlers arrived, 200 Indians attacked them. So, let's think about that. So, who was there? Okay, you probably said the men and the boys. All right, what happened to them? What happened? They faced challenges, right? What were some of those challenges? Hopefully you're saying drinking water, food, and attacking were the 3 things that happened. So those are all the important pieces. Not that it was 200 Indians, not that there was 104 men, and not even that it was the James River. So when I would summarize that section, I would say the men and boys faced many challenges. They didn't have enough food, safe drinking water, and they were attacked by Native Americans. That summarizes what happened in there with keeping the main ideas in there, keeping the details that need to be there, and then it also helps me to remember what happened in that section. So that when we summarize something, it helps to know that we understand it then, that we can put it in our own words. And that's exactly what you do when you do research reports and other things where you need to take it and put it into your own words. All right, let's take a look at sequence. Well, a text structure is what we need to know. This is a vocabulary word here, text structure. It is the way we organize and present information. It's called a text structure. We might organize it and put it together in compare, contrast. We might use sequencing. And sequencing is a text structure. That's the one we're going to look at today. A text structure that is sequence, it comes in time order. So it's going to have a logical sequence in it. Maybe it starts with the birth and goes all the way through the death. Maybe it starts from the time that, in this case, the time that they go to Jamestown all the way through present day, in a sense, because they're taking a closer look at what happened through archaeology. And so when you look at a text structure with sequence, you look for clues. Besides the obvious one, the dates, like 1610 or 1607, I can tell that something that happened in 1607 happened before something in 1610. But sometimes we have word time order clues or word sequencings, which means things like 3 days later or a few years before or finally. All those give me more sequence as to when things happened. This type of structure also lends itself well to making a timeline. And if you're doing a paper, or like last year, when you did your research reports on people, you could make your timeline that would deal with a sequence. You probably read some of your research books that were in sequence order. So the sequence is the order in which things happen, and that's the way it's organized. And that's exactly how it is. If you look at 371, they give you a good example as to how it is organized. Okay? Our genre for the week is informational article. An informational article. You can see that base word, inform. It's going to give me information, right? It's nonfiction. It's going to be facts, not made up. 2, it gives facts and information. It gives facts and information. And then 3, it has text features. Every time we talk about a genre, there's certain text features that they might have. In an informational article, we're going to see we might see a sidebar. A sidebar is something that's written off the main text, and it has additional information for us. The article, The Real Life Pocahontas, it's not part of the article, Take a Tour of Jamestown, Virginia, the Birthplace of America. It really tells us more about Pocahontas and gives us a little background on who she is. But it's still important to the history of what was going on at that time. So we needed that sidebar. If we think about our National Geographic, or we think about the Social Studies Weekly sometimes has it, and definitely our Scholastic News has it, where they have sidebars, and they have a little piece over here that we look at, and then that helps to understand a little bit more about the article. The other thing that's a text feature is a map. The map shows us specific places, like on page 369, you have a map there of the settlement of Virginia from 1607 to 1700s. It shows us the where the settlement is, the present-day borders of all the different states. And that's the purpose of that map, to help us to understand a little bit more about the place and what was taking place, maybe where it was taking place or what other things were around there. When you do your workbook, page 246 today, how do you know this is an informational text? Well, these 3 things are the reason I know it is informational text. When you write your answer to those are the type of things I want to see. It's nonfiction. It gives facts. It has information. It has a text feature. When you come up with your text feature, remember your text feature either has to be a sidebar or a map for this week's lesson. And then what do you learn from those things? Those are the type of things you want to include when you're doing your workbook, page 246 today. Okay? The last thing we want to look at is proverbs and adages. Proverbs and adages. Well, what are they? They're just short sayings or expressions that have been used a long time, and they're used to express some type of general truth. For example, ignorance is bliss is one that we saw in our reading this week. And its meaning, bliss means to be happy. Ignorance means to not know something. So not knowing is happiness? Well, in this case it is. Because when we think about it, what it means is it's better not to know what was going to happen because it was going to be bad. And because they didn't know about it, they could be happy about going to the new world and making this new settlement. If they knew they were going to go through terrible times, that they were going to have bad drinking water, there wasn't going to be enough food, they were going to be attacked, that would not be a happy thing to come into. So in this case, ignorance is bliss, and that's what the proverb or adage means. You had one in Ben Franklin's story where it said, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away." Well, it doesn't mean that you'll never go to the doctor. It doesn't mean that if you eat apples every day that you're never going to get sick. But what it does mean is if we eat healthy, then we generally don't get as sick. and then we don't have to go to a doctor if we're not sick. So that's kind of how that is as far as what proverbs and adages are. Okay, so we had proverbs and adages. We had informational articles that are nonfiction. They give facts. They have their text features of a sidebar or map. We have sequence as a text structure where we look for those dates and the time order. And we summarize things by telling them in our own words. That's our lesson for today, and I hope you are having a great day, and we'll talk to you in the virtual world again.